Hi everybody, Rockin' Librarian here, wearing my new shirt. Look at that, Hanover Owls. Owl always learning, owl always learning. So I love it. Anyway, today, I'm very excited actually. I'm always excited. We're gonna dive into mythology. Now, it's so confusing, mythology. There's all these stories and all these people. So I went to Brain Pop and we're going to watch this teeny tiny video on Zeus and his two brothers. And then I'm going to quickly show you a family tree. And there's so many stories, but we're just going to pick a few favorites. And then I'm going to let you explore your own. So here's a little family tree. And I love family trees. I love visuals because I'm a visual learner. I don't know about you, but this is Zeus's family tree. So here's Zeus, right? So up here are his parents, and they're connected by marriage. And they had Hades, Poseidon, Hestia, and Zeus. Zeus married Hera, right? And here are their children down here. Okay, so Hades, you're going to learn in a few minutes on the Brain Pop video that he is god of the underworld. Poseidon is god of the sea. Hestia is a goddess. I don't know what she's goddess of. We can look that up. And Zeus is god of the heavens. So let me go ahead and go to our class link, and we're actually going to go to Brain Pop, which may or may not be on your screen. Cold Harbor pays for it. So therefore, because that's my home school, I can access it, but I'm going to go ahead. It is Cold Harbor. Oh, close that. Cold Harbor, one word. And then Cougars, if you want to get in there. And I'm going to put in here Greek gods. This is actually a good, reliable resource that you could be using. And here we go. So I'm going to show the Brain Pop. Let's see, I'm going to take my video off so you can stop seeing me. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see the quick Brain Pop on the Greek gods.
I have to make a family tree of the Greek gods for my history class. It's all pretty complicated. Dear Tim and Moby, who were the Greek gods? From Theodore. The ancient Greeks were polytheistic. That means they believed in more than one god. They had a whole mythology that explained their gods' roles in the universe. The story goes that three brothers, Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon, gambled for control of the heavens, sea, and underworld. Poseidon won the sea, Hades won the underworld, and Zeus won the heavens. The gods agreed that they would share control of the earth, which led to a lot of arguments and fighting. Yeah, according to legend, the 12 main Greek gods lived on top of Mount Olympus. They were known as the Olympians. But Mount Olympus wasn't always a very friendly place to live. Let's take a look at some of the major players on Mount Olympus. Since he controlled the heavens, Zeus became the ruler of the other Greek gods. Hera was his wife, and they didn't have the greatest relationship. Hera was jealous at Zeus's interest in other women. Yeah. Then there was Apollo, the god of medicine, music, and the sun. His sister was Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. Artemis and Apollo were actually the children of Zeus and a mortal woman, Leto. Aphrodite was the goddess of love. She was married to Hephaestus, the god of metalworking, but she was actually in love with Ares, the god of war. I know, it's like staying home from school and watching soap operas. Demeter was Zeus's sister and the goddess of grain and the harvest. Athena was the goddess of justice and learning. She was born fully grown from Zeus's head. As the ruler of the sea, Poseidon controlled the wind and the waves. When he got angry, rough seas were sure to follow. Hermes was another of Zeus's sons, and he was a messenger of the gods. He had the job of conducting souls to the underworld, ruled by Hades, as you remember. Hades wasn't very happy about getting stuck with the underworld, and he stayed away from Mount Olympus most of the time. Well, the whole thing sounds complicated, but the gods were a part of everyday life for the ancient Greeks. A sick person might ask Apollo, the god of medicine, to make them well again. Sailors would make sacrifices to Poseidon to keep storms away. The Greeks made animal sacrifices to the gods before going to war, before sporting events, to show their thanks, or to find out the future. Oh, and by the way, there were lots of other minor gods and goddesses who ruled over all sorts of other things on Earth. It was a pretty big family. Well, the Greek gods didn't really go anywhere. People just stopped believing in them eventually and decided to believe in other stuff. You want to have control of the seas? Okay, go for it. What are you doing in there?
So we got a little overview of the three brothers at least, and will lead us into some of these fun stories we're going to explore. The main one we're going to be using, like I said, are these Weird But True books, which are great. And at the back of the book, I know Cold Harbor has this book right here, which gives more of the stories. Okay, so I'll see you in a few minutes. Before we start our reading, I wanted to show you the genre card on myths, a story about how the world was created and why certain things happen from cultures all over the world, often features gods and goddesses. So when you're searching the library catalog or the online library catalogs, you can be searching for Greek mythology or myths to come up with something you would like to read. All right, so I have my book here, Weird But True. I love these books by National Geographic. This Weird But True Know-It-All Greek Mythology. And I love this section of the library, 398.2. That's also where they keep fairy tales, folk tales, tall tales. And this is from the public library. Our library wouldn't have those initials up top. And that, of course, is the author's last name. Right, the author's last name. Let's see if that focuses in. There we go. All right, I have a couple of pages that I marked that I want to read today. But the first one is just kind of fun. This is the kind of book you don't have to read the whole book. I can go to the table of contents and find things that I want to read about. And I had marked that I want to read Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, and the underworld. Those are the main ones I want to hit on today. I thought this was kind of fun, Greek mythology by numbers. So I want to touch upon this. Let me zoom in so you can read it as well. 3. Of course, that's a big number in fairy tales, right? The number 3. Why is that not focusing up? There we go. The number of heads possessed by Cerberus, the watchdog of the underworld. Now, we already learned who's in charge of the underworld, and that's Hades. So we'll learn about that. The number 12. The number of gods who lived on Mount Olympus, also known as the Olympians. Pretty interesting. Okay. Let's see. All right. So the first person we have to read is Zeus. Of course, I wanted to do him. He's the god of the sky and heavens, right? And of course, if we looked at Mount Olympus, there's 12 gods on Mount Olympus. And of course, Zeus is king of the gods and he has 11 other people seated, all immortals, right? Not humans, all immortals. Okay, so here's Zeus, god of sky and heavens. Why he's weird. Zeus would use lightning bolts to strike down his enemies. Claim to fame. He was the ruler of the gods. It's mythic. Zeus had the ability to turn mortals immortal. That's cool. So mortal, you know, means like humans, immortal, godlike. Okay.
So now you get to do a quick research again this week on one of these other gods, goddesses, or monsters you may come across inside Greek mythology.
With his goat nanny, Athena, and the nymphs who looked after him. Nourished by the diet of goat milk, he grew up to be a mighty god with enough smarts and strength to eventually overthrow the Titans and take control of the universe. Weatherman. Did thunderstorm cancel your outdoor birthday party? Blame Zeus. As the god of the sky and thunder, he controlled all the world's weather, including the winds, clouds, rain, thunder, lightning. But Zeus only unleashed the bad stuff as a punishment for someone he believed crossed him. Like the time he hurled a lightning bolt at Zion, a doctor after Zion fell in love with Zeus's wife, Hera. Shifter. Zeus was a master of disguise. To trick or confuse people, the cunning king would morph into the shape of an animal, like a bull or a swan. He nabbed his wife Hera by first creating a thunderstorm, then disguising himself as a small cuckoo bird. When she spotted the bird out in the rain, she scooped it up and comforted it. Zeus then switched back into the mighty god mode, duping Hera into marriage. Sneaky, sneaky. Zeus was said to be so strong he could seemingly handily beat a team of all other gods in tug of war. So this book kind of tells you about it. No stories attached. There's so many fun stories. Here's Poseidon, his brother, right? God of the sea. God of the sea. Why is he weird? Okay, claim to fame. He ruled the seas and could start powerful earthquakes. Why is he weird? Poseidon rode the waves in a gold chariot pulled by half horse, half serpent creatures with golden manes. Waterworld. After the War of the Titans, Poseidon took over the oceans, where he ruled from the undersea palace with his wife Aphrodite. From there, he controlled the currents, sometimes launching waves giant enough to sink ships. At other times, he smoothed the seas to help sailors along. Poseidon's personality is a lot like the sea itself, sometimes rough, sometimes calm and placid. While he was known to be helpful, watch him on a bad day, and he just may flood your land. No contest. Although life underwater appealed idyllic, Poseidon wasn't satisfied ruling just the seas. He wanted earthly kingdoms too, namely the Greek land of Ithaca. The only problem, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, wanted it too, so the pair put on a contest. The people who offered up the best gift to the people of the city would win the land. A confident Poseidon stepped up and banged his mighty trident into the rocky hillside, intending to turn it into flowing spring. The water wasn't fresh, but salty water and undrinkable. Meanwhile, Athena offered the gift that kept on giving, an olive tree. The people of Ithaca could eat the olives and make olive oil, use the tree's wood, and seek shade beneath its branches. Much to Poseidon's disappointment, Athena not only won the land, but it was renamed after her as well. Ever hear of Athens, Greece? A horse, of course. That's not to say Poseidon didn't make a great impact in the mythology world. Some stories say he created the horse, scheming to create the world's most beautiful animal in an attempt to win over the goddess Demeter. Poseidon crafted the animal by smashing his trident into a rock. The ploy to steal Demeter's heart didn't work, but horses became part of Poseidon's persona, and he's often credited with the start of the sport of horse racing. Of course, his brother Hades, that we learned in the video as well, god of the underworld, and look at his mean face, right? Claim to fame, he oversaw all of the dead souls of the dead. Why he's weird? He really left the underworld, preferring to stay there instead of on top of Mount Olympus. Fear no evil. Darkness, death, doom, and gloom, the kind of scary stuff, had nothing on Hades. Crowned the overlord of the underworld, after the taxonomy, Hades took his title quite seriously and stayed put in his spooky, dark dwelling. Although he had a place to live on Mount Olympus, he rarely made it up there, preferring to hang out solo in a shady spot. There he oversaw souls of the dead, mostly determined where people wound up after entering the underworld. Now you see him. Move over, Harry Potter. Who needs an invisibility cloak when you've got an invisibility helmet? Thanks to the handiwork of the crafty Cyclops, Hades could hide out wherever he wanted once he popped on his tricky topper. He even let other gods and goddesses and demigods like Hermes and Athena and Perseus borrow it when they went to battle. A god's best friend. Hades may have been a gloomy god, but he did have somewhat a soft side, at least for his three-headed dog, Cerberus. When Cerberus wasn't guarding the gate to the underworld, he takes rides with Hades across the dark land in a golden chariot, which makes you wonder, how much did Hades have to feed a dog with 3 mouths? That's a lot of puppy chow. Woof, bark, woof. And the last one I do have that one too. Let's see. I thought I had underworld. Here it is. Just the underworld. Look at that picture. Death becomes them. Let's see. Let me zoom in a little bit better. There we go. Where did mortals go when they died? According to mythology, every person, no matter whether he or she was good, evil, or in between, landed in the underworld. Where they went from there was decided by Hades and a trio of judges, Rhadamanthus, Ixias, and Minos. But first, the souls had to get into Hades. Here's how it went down. Once a mortal died, their soul had to cross 5 rivers, representing sorrow, lamentation, fire, forgetfulness, and hate. The souls crossed the river by boat and found another entrance through a cave. Either way, it eventually made it to the gates of Hades. There it met the 3-headed dog of Cerberus, bearing rows and rows of gnashing sharp teeth. But he wasn't tasked with keeping the dead out. Rather, he'd attack anyone who tried to leave. Once you were in Hades, there was absolutely no turning back unless you were lucky enough to be reborn. Claim to fame, this was the forever home of all dead mortal souls. I thought this was really interesting, this little tidbit I found out. I came across it in a couple of different books as I was doing my research here for mythology. And let's see if I can get a better picture for you. Small change. Some people still place a coin underneath the tongue of their deceased loved ones, a tradition believed to stem from the story about dead souls needing money to cross the Styx, the central river of the underworld, by ferry. Those who couldn't pay had to wander around to find another entrance to Hades. So sending off a soul with a couple of coins could set him or her up for easy access to the underworld. Pretty interesting. Now, I wanted to read you this page as well because there are so many stories about Odysseus, the traveling king. Claim to fame, he was the inventor of the Trojan horse. Now, hopefully you know about this story, the Trojan horse, right? I come in peace, at war. Odysseus, the ruler of the island kingdom of Ithaca, was known as a clever and cunning king. During his reign, the people of Troy, known as the Trojans, and the Greeks were battling a war sparked by the capture of the Spartan queen, Helen. To win the war and bring Helen home, the Greeks first had to make their way past the wall surrounding Troy. The wall was so tall and strong, breaking it seemed impossible. Now, why is he weird? He spent 10 years traveling home after winning the Trojan War. Okay. Far afield. Meanwhile, Odysseus was doing all he could to avoid going to war. In fact, to avoid war, he pretended to go insane. He hitched his donkey to a plow and began to sowing his fields with salts instead of seeds. People were onto him, though. To test his mental well-being, a man placed his infant son in front of Odysseus' plow. When the king made an abrupt turn to avoid the baby, it proved his mental state was quite sound, and poor Odysseus reluctantly headed to battle. Horsing around. The Trojan War raged on for 10 years. Just when it seemed all hopeless, Odysseus had the best idea yet. In order to break into Troy, they would build a huge wooden horse, leave it at the gate wall of the walled city, and pretend to retreat. Odysseus' plan worked, and the Trojan would think the horse was a prize and bring it inside the gate. Little did they know, inside the hollow horse, dozens of Greek troops would be lining in wait. Once the Trojans brought the horse past the gate, they'd leap out, ready to pounce. It was a perfect plan. The people of Troy gladly accepted the stunning horse, displaying it at the center of the city. At night, as everyone was in town was asleep, the men hiding inside climbed out, opened the gates, and led the Greek army into Troy to nab Helen. Thanks to Odysseus, the Greeks won the Trojan War, and it was time for the hero to head home. There's so many fun stories in this book. I'm going to pause there for a second. So that book that we were just reading gives you all the background information of all the Greek gods and some of the mystical creatures and monsters. But this story, we just read about him a little bit, this one is the voyages of Odysseus. So for 10 years after he won Troy, not him, Odysseus won the Battle of Troy with the Trojan horse, it took him 10 years to get home. And these are some of the stories and adventures he had. So this is another great book. And of course, again, I'm going to skip around because I want to go to the Cyclops right here, page 8. Palamus and the Cyclops. Sailing on, the men reached the land of the Cyclops. Odysseus was eager to find out what these one-eyed giants were like. He led a party of men into one of their caves. Soon, its owner returned, the gigantic Palamus, with one eye staring from the middle of his forehead. Palamus was very angry to find the men in his home. He immediately seized and ate 2 of them for his supper. Then he made sure the others couldn't escape by blocking the cave's entrance with a huge boulder. The men were terrified, but the wily Odysseus soon figured out a way to escape. The following night, the Palamus was asleep. The men sharpened a wooden stake and blinded the Cyclops with it. In the morning, when the Palamus rolled away the boulder to let his sheep out, the men sneaked out as well. The enraged Cyclops called the god Poseidon for revenge. Okay, and that's how they snuck out underneath the cow's back. So fun stories you can read in Greek mythology. The Keeper wins. These are his travels that he took in those 10 years to get back home.
Greek mythology is so fun. There's so many different characters that are created. So now's your time to pick one of these. I picked out some of my favorites: a centaur, Medusa, Minotaur, Pegasus, Chimera, and a lot of them are like half human, half animal, things like that. So pick one, and you're going to use a reliable resource like World Book. So start at World Book. Now they might not all be in World Book, but if one's not there, pick another one. Tell me who or what you researched on the paper, what source you used, which hopefully is World Book, a reliable source, a paid database, and just explain what the monster god or goddesses is. You could do more than one because they're fascinating. Have fun. Another fun thing you can do right now is use your research skills. Look up these heroes since you don't have this book in front of you, and look up the little descriptions on the right page and try to match them up. So you see them a little closer in the slides. I will also put these images on the slide itself under the Bitmoji Classroom so you can use it there as well, or pause the video and look at them here. Have fun.